Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry. With me as always is...
Aren't you curious why he dines on his victims? Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we're talking about Hannibal, the movie, released February 9th, 2001.
Sure
We already covered Silence of the Lambs a little ways back. I don't remember when, but...
few months.
Here we are with the sequel. Which we're really excited to talk about. I'm actually surprised that you used that as your quote.
Yeah, I know.
Because there's just so much
Mason
Verger.
Yeah, I know.
And we'll get into all that. But
Yes, we will.
How's it going?
It's crazy.
Crazy?
I mean, days. I mean, the days gone by. I don't know. I'm in a work situation I'm presently trying to get out of, and having a lot of help, a lot of support from a lot of friends, but those moments in life where everything's in transition, everything's kind of loose, nothing's really nailed down yet, and you just kind of make your way through it. But as long as you've got people you can rely on and stuff like that, I think one of the biggest priorities for me these days is to get to a situation where I can catch up on the horror movies that are getting released this year. I've seen...
There's so many.
I know there are so many, and I keep missing them. And the last one I saw was for the pod, because I had to, Strangers,
last week, yeah.
Chapter 1, yeah. And you know how we felt about that. And so I don't even know what kind of a year this is necessarily kind of like shaping up. We're halfway through it. It's June.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
what the fuck?
There's a lot of releases that are, go to streaming and stuff like that. And I'm honestly, I'm so done with streaming. I don't have Netflix. I don't think I will ever resubscribe to it. Especially with just what's come out recently too. Did you hear Mike Flanagan? Because he ended his contract with them. And a big part of that was the fact that he wanted his movies to get physical media releases, and they were just so vehemently against that and against any sort of physical media. Yeah, they just want everything to be streaming. They're only concerned about subscribers and stuff like that. So he's out, and I believe Hush is getting a release. I don't know if that's true or not. I didn't really look into it, but I mean, I hope so. Good for him. And I just have so much more respect for him in that regard, that he would be a filmmaker who, just no, this is the devil. I'm, divorcing myself of you. And I mean, there are some gems that come out on streaming here and there. There was one a few years back. Do you remember No Exit? It was the Hulu one where they were stuck in the cabin in the snowstorm.
I forgot that was the title. Yeah, I really liked that one.
Yeah, that one was fun. I mean, these aren't movies that are breaking any ground, but I mean, the thing is, just streaming in general. I think it was actually Glenn Powell who said it the best, because there was a movie that he just is releasing, or has just released, that he said that Netflix had approached them and was just we want to buy this, and they refused and said, there's things get released on Netflix or just streaming, and there's no cultural impact. It comes out, it's watched by tons of people, and it's forgotten. The movie theater experience is just dwindling to the point where things come out. I'm sure The Strangers is already on video on demand at this point. Chapter 1, things get a release window of 2 weeks, and then it's just hey, let's push it out there. The studios don't have faith in movies anymore to just be around, and that's because they're releasing they're making movies that are costing over $100 million to make. Interestingly enough, the movie that we're talking about today is a very expensive movie and didn't need to be. But that's the thing, is they're putting all of their eggs in these baskets, these big baskets of just these are the movies we want to do. And it's just it's things that, not that nobody's necessarily interested in, but they might not be. It might be something that needs to be marketed a little bit better, or there's so many factors involved, and they put them out and they're just well, this failed, so now this is more proof that the theater experience is dying. Physical media is out. Everyone just wants to watch like whatever the Jennifer Lopez one that came out this last week or two.
Oh Jesus!
Which I don't even. Yeah, I don't know anything about that other than the fact that it was not good. Apparently,
no, she had to cancel her tour, like, because there's just no prospects for her these days.
No.
Nobody cares about her creating content about like her kind of happily ever after with Ben Affleck, which is becoming increasingly more scrutinized every single day. That's not horror related, but I just
well, I mean, maybe there could be like a mommy dearest type situation come out of that in a few years.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know, but in terms of like what you're talking about, like I agree with you in terms of Mike Flanagan, especially for someone who's much a heavy hitter. I mean, think about how much content he's created for Netflix as a platform, and how many like he's created not just like things that have like I think been really, really closely associated with successes of Netflix and things that people look forward to, but he's also people still discuss his projects that he worked on those platforms. They have nothing to lose. They only have to gain from physical media releases of content that he's certainly collaborated on. I don't understand what motivates the decision makers, the ones who really matter, who have the final say in these kinds of decisions. It feels like just leaving money on the table. And like you said, like kind of abandoning fandom as a concept. They'd rather churn things out for people to flock to as soon as possible than create something that people are going to, kind of value for the rest of their lives. And I think there's a balance. There's a way to do both,
Well, I mean, money talks, and that's the thing. And people will complain about streaming and all this and just like how much they hate it, but then they're still, subscribing to it, and they're putting their money, and they're going to some of these blockbusters. I mean, like there's a lot of things like Marvel that's just not even doing well anymore. But it's just like the things that people show up for, like The Strangers Chapter 1, that like everyone's saying awful movie, but that's not like Hollywood's not listening to that. They're looking at the dollars racking up there. And I mean that's like.
Horror fans show up too.
Yeah, and that's like kind of because like I want to break into filmmaking, and like currently right now, I do have a short film that I'm working on with my friend Eric, and we're looking into crowdfunding it. We're actually in the preparation stages for setting that up, so that's gonna be something that's gonna like start real soon. Like I'm gonna be updating all about that like on my channel on here. Yeah, like it's exciting, but that's the thing. It's like. This is a movie that is like being made by people who are passionate about horror, and it's like the opportunity for fans of horror that are also passionate to contribute to that, and that's part of this wheel. It's just like people put money into stuff like that, and our hope is that we're going to make this film, and it's going to be great. I'm biased, obviously, but we want to. It's a chance to turn something into a presentation that we can then go to the right people and be like, here is a preview of like a bigger story, a bigger movie that we can make, and then fun movies like that. There's a lot of filmmakers out there, and I'm sure that there's people who could do an even better job than Eric and I at doing this. But it's just like these are people that are just getting passed over constantly because Hollywood is just like, well, this person made this movie that did a lot of, had a lot of success at this point, so let's let them do it, even though it's something that's not really necessarily within their niche or that they're passionate about or anything, and they just put it out there because that's just the way that the system works.
Yeah, and or it works in a situation where the short project. I'm just thinking about something like Lights Out, like where the short project I thought was a success, and what was that, like a 90-second, 2-minute short thing, and then they made the feature film, and basically it felt like the studio had basically like completely reconfigured it and drained it of any of the charm or even just like the handmade quality, the tension, the suspense. I mean, I'm showing my hand if we ever cover that in the pod.
And I would love to revisit
what
Lights
attracted
Out
me to it.
Yeah, I would love to revisit that one because the 3-minute short is excellent, and I mean it's the same person who directed it, like did the feature. So I don't know what got lost in translation there, or like, you know, I'd be interested to hear more about that. But yeah, it is a thing where it's just like you have to maneuver through the system in a certain way that, you know, gets attention. And a lot of the time, like, if you want to make the movie that you want to make without any meddling, that, you know, is like, this is what people want to see. This is what I like. This is what other people who like the same thing that I like are going to want to see. You have to go through the route where there's going to be the least resistance. And that's probably not going to be a movie that's going to be marketed for millions upon millions of dollars, because that's just like, Hollywood doesn't take risks like that anymore. But I mean, thankfully there are studios like A24 and Neon who are, you know, giving these platforms to new filmmakers. So that's really special. And you know, I would love to cover more films from those studios. But
absolutely.
We should move along here. Just a little housekeeping first. If you are new to the Cherry Picker and you like what you see or you're listening to, thank you. We appreciate that. But you could also go a little bit further in giving back to us. You could head over to my Patreon, Zack Cherry, and subscribe at any tier. That'll give you early access to all of the episodes of the Cherry Picker. You'll get them typically like the weekend before, you know, like the Thursday, Friday. So you get a head start on that. If you want to listen to us, you know, prattle on over the weekend. We also have the Cherry Picker After Dark. That's the bonus episode that we air every month, which is a Patreon exclusive. That's available to the Freddy Krueger tier and up. Last month we talked about Mommy Dearest. This month we are talking about one of my personal favorites, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
So worth it. So worth your time, guys.
Great movie. Very, very campy, very horror adjacent too. Very special to me, and hopefully you as well. But we've got that going on. I also do want to shout out some of my Patreon supporters at the higher tiers. So for the Michael Myers supporters, I want to say thank you to Kyle Beard, Sam Levy, Khalil Young, Brady James, Ali Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horror Slut 95, Bruce the Genetic Jack Hammerando, Gary Blasick, Sean Flanagan. I wonder if there's any relation to Mike. Josh Carr, Michael Boswell, Brandy Beebe, and the Ghostface supporters, Eric Champney, who I mentioned earlier, and Daniel Saturn, Tamika Jones, Garrison Nichols. Thank you very much to all of the high rollers over there. Also, thank you to our new podcast editor, Jason Voorhees Galatello.
Jason.
Anything else you think we missed, or can we get into Hannibal here?
Let's get into it.
Okay.
All right. Premise going here. I could do this as Mason Verger.
Sure.
Okay. Laying low in Florence, Italy, after his escape from a Maryland facility 10 years earlier, Dr. Lecter attempts continually to reconnect with now disgraced FBI agent Clarice Starling, soon discovering himself the target for a powerful victim's ultimate revenge on Hannibal.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, God. So Mason Verger, okay, this is like so niche to us, but we, because, you know, we've been collaborating for a long time. We, you know, dabbled a little bit in movie reactions years and years ago. We don't do them anymore. I can't do movie reactions, but we did, what was it? It was the Wes Craven one, My Soul to Take.
Yes.
Which
it was a slippery slope.
We will need to cover that movie sometime. But
Yes.
There's a character in there who's like very
Yes.
much. It's very much like Rose McGowan and like the Mean Girls in Jawbreaker, and they like have a scene where they go into the bathroom. But this girl has this affectation. What did you call it?
A sibilant S, happy sweet 16.
Right.
And we started doing impressions of her, and it started to slip into Mason Verger, and we realized, oh, Mason Verger could take over this role. He's got mad, like, mean girl, teenager.
Yeah. No, that's what we discovered, is that Mason Verger would have been like the Courtney Shane or the Regina George of his high school. Just walking into the washrooms, just like, out, bitches.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he probably wouldn't sound like that back then because, he wasn't all like scarred and deformed.
Yeah. Or who
like,
knows? Maybe he did sound like that before. I mean, spoilers, Michael Pitt plays him in Hannibal the series, the second season. And when he does kind of talk like this a little bit. Yeah. It doesn't really work for me, but but if it were to be Courtney Shane, then we started doing lines from Jawbreaker as Mason Verger, and they worked really well. It was like, so aggressive, kind of turns me on,
Well, there's even a scene at the end where it's like right before Mason is killed by Cordell. Because he's just like, Cordell, go into the pit and get the gun. And Cordell's like, no, I'm not involved in any of this. You're involved is what you are. And it just like makes me think of like Courtney and like, Marcy, go and get the gun. And then when he starts pushing him, because Hannibal's like, hey, Cordell, why don't you throw him in? You could always say it was me. And he's like, Cordell? And you just hear like Courtney like, Marcy?
Yeah, right. Foxy, help, fix it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We laughed harder than I think we expected to during that particular.
And people are like, "What the fuck are you talking about right now? Like, let's talk about Hannibal."
But it's followed us all these years, and will continue to follow us. We'll always fall back on Mason Verger as particular mean girls, manifesting.
He's got the mean girl energy. Yeah.
Yes, he does.
You mentioned Hannibal the series, and we're not really gonna like go into that because that's a whole separate thing. But what I think is funny about that is like Hannibal as a TV show was a series. What was it? NBC, I
believe so.
And this, because we've talked about Hannibal before when we did the old commentaries, and the conclusion that you and I had kind of come to was that this felt like kind of more so in like the scenes that are filmed in the United States and like towards the end of the movie, it had this like very television procedural vibe to it, which just felt very flat and stale. And it's funny because like you look at this and be like, oh, this is just like a show on like NBC or CBS or whatever. And then you have Hannibal the series, which was quite literally on NBC. And I look at that and there's so much style and atmosphere and tone to that movie. This feels so empty to me. This movie, to show my hand right up front, do you remember the way that Stephen King described Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining?
Yeah.
He said that it was like a beautiful Cadillac. A beautiful Cadillac that had no engine inside. And I disagree completely. I think Stephen King is just a bitter Betty because he knows that that movie is amazing. But Hannibal is like, this is just a big, expensive piece of nothing. And that's kind of my takeaway from it. Like, this is a 2.5-star movie for me, which is, compared to Silence of the Lambs, which is 5 stars.
Yeah, I went back and because the first time we actually, because the first time we covered this was for that commentary pod that we used to do, but the second time was for Fright Club, which we did afterwards, where we were comparing Silence of the Lambs, the film, to Hannibal, the film, and we would chime in, we would collaborate on these scripts, like, discussing like the strong points as far as like characters and kills and plot and things like that, design aspects, and then an overall score. But then it would always be kind of ultimately up to the audience who voted beforehand on which one is the better, and we'd give the percentages and everything like that. Very, very cherry picker, if I say so myself.
Yeah.
But but one thing that when I rewatched it, because I hadn't seen it in a long time, so all the research was kind of out of my brain. I had forgotten, because I think you brought up this tidbit that the only reason the book got written in the first place was because the movie studio had commissioned a sequel from Thomas Harris, because they wanted to make a sequel, but they couldn't come up with a good enough, plot on their own. So they commissioned a book from him. He wrote the book basically so he could get a paycheck. That we put it in the we put it in the video. So
okay, because I don't remember
that we double and triple checked.
But I was thinking about that today because it was so long ago that we discussed any of that. But even thinking about it today, I was just like, I remember Hannibal when it came out. This was early 2001. Like, I was really hyped up for it. Like, they made a big deal about like Anthony Hopkins coming back. I had the book. I read the book. I don't think that the book was very good. But I don't read a lot, so I don't really have like too much of a point of comparison. There's a lot of like creative liberties taken in the movie that kind of divert from what it was in the book. But there's in this movie, it's just like there's not really, like, Hannibal is kind of, he's not the least interesting part of the movie, but for a movie that is called Hannibal, he really doesn't have much bearing on the overall plot, other than the fact that everyone is kind of obsessed with him.
Well, that is 100% true. And let's open it up even more so. Nothing really happens in this story. I mean, we learn that he escaped, and he's still escaped, and we learn that Clarice is now disgraced. I mean, basically everything I covered in the premise, like that's what we learn. And then kind of nothing happens. They kind of dance around Hannibal and Clarice reconnecting again, and then when they finally do reconnect, there's about a half hour, if that, left of the movie, and it's still not quite clear what's going on, and you can't even really capitalize off of the dynamic between the two characters, because one huge component of why the first movie worked so well is the chemistry between Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster, and the give and take, and the fact that the two of them were both working toward their own personal, individual goals, which Clarice was always working toward, solving the case, and also ultimately kind of like solving, the mystery of her life, which she didn't even know she had to, but things were coming up from the moment she met him, basically, about her past and her relationship with her father and the lambs and all that. But and then with him, it was all about like mining through a great mind, seeing potential in someone and seeing a worthy adversary,
but also kind of planning his ultimate escape from custody.
Yes.
So there were like great stakes involved. There was character transformation. Like, both Clarice and Hannibal are different people, whether it's like emotionally or physically, in terms of like where they are from the start of the movie to the finish. Like, there is a journey there. Okay, so this film, this is the perfect analogy in my mind of how to describe this. This is Halloween Resurrection with a budget. This is a studio movie where they're just like, let's just throw a bunch of shit there. It's just like Hannibal, and like he's in it. We can afford to pay him. There was no passion involved in any of this. Nobody really, I don't want to say that nobody gave a shit, because like there's so many people involved in filmmaking, but just in terms of like the studio being kind of like this umbrella of just like decisions of just like what we're going to do. Nothing about this was like made with love in terms of honoring what came before it. It was a money machine. It was just like, let's do this. Let's capitalize on nostalgia and throw this together. And that's kind of like what with Halloween Resurrection coming off of the heels of like H2O. It's just like, let's just like, we want more story. We want to continue this storyline of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. How are we going to do that? Oh, let's hire her for like 20 minutes or a day shoot, and let's just have them in the house because that's what everyone likes. Yeah. This is what's really hot right now. Let's put all these things together. And this is Hannibal, except Hannibal had an $83 million budget, and it made a lot of fucking money. Like, yes, it did really well, and then it gave way to the prequel movie or the remake of Manhunter, which was Red Dragon the year later. Yes. So I mean, clearly the people who are, in the studio and making all these decisions, they did quite handsomely from it all. So, I mean, who's to say how this is viewed upon by them these days? But general fan consensus was just sort of like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they all, it was a fine fat hit. But no Oscars were awarded this time around at all.
Like not zero?
Even yeah, zero.
Oh, wow.
No, this was, I don't believe this was even acknowledged, but I can double check on that on IMDb.
Well, I mean, that's probably why, like Jodie Foster must have seen the script and just was like, absolutely.
Yes, she turned it down.
Absolutely not. I
remember even at the time, that she had turned it down.
And that's not a smudge on Julianne Moore. I think that Julianne Moore is a fabulous actress.
Yes, she is.
It's just that the material that she has to work with here is garbage.
Yeah, this is the problem. You take, number one, you don't have the same actor, and it's not about caliber or about ability. It's just about the first movie made us care so much about that particular performer playing that particular role. So now they've taken somebody completely new and introduced them in a less developed way. Because again, like from the get-go, I feel like there's some significance to the fact that Julianne Moore's Clarice is introduced sleeping. But then, I mean, I kept trying to kind of find the art somewhere in pocket, and there were pockets where I would get like a sliver of something throughout this movie. It never really paid off, in a grand way that was satisfying cinematically, but it did. I did see, like, okay, we're juxtaposing her opening moment, which is her sleeping on a car seat, to her immediately kind of like taking charge and being, like this FBI officer who we all kind of like wanted to see her be, and looked like it might go in a direction of kind of like what Aliens did for Ripley, Hannibal could do for Clarice. Like, now she's got more power. She's been through this once before, so maybe she'll be in a position where she can actually kind of like affect some change. And then the movie immediately kind of pulls the rug out from under her by putting men under her who have their own agendas, who are working for other politicians and corruption and within the bureaucracy, and stripping, and then chastising her, and then and stripping her of her badge and of her access, but not of her benefits, and just kind of like leaving her, confining her to her room, past the halfway point, and everything before all of that really kind of like ultimately kicks her out, and then she starts kind of like, just working of her own accord, like just kind of like, it just didn't feel like Clarice anymore. I didn't believe, or I wasn't interested in what got her to that point enough where she was kind of like now working outside of the system. Number one, I don't believe Clarice would do that. So, but then everything prior to that, like I watched a character called Clarice Starling for the first time raise her voice, to a man who's baiting her, who's trying to, get an emotional rise out of her so he can like, keep the bureaucracy keeping her down and everything like that. And it was just so sickening. I was like, I don't want to see this. I don't watch Clarice lose for an hour. You know what I mean?
This is my take on that. I mean, first of all, you always find a way to kind of like infuse this theme of misogyny into like literally everything that we watch, which is just your thing. And I let it, and I just go with it. It actually it works here because I mean by its very
totally
nature, like Silence of the Lambs was very much so about misogyny, and the thing there is like it was done in a very nuanced way where nothing was ever just like outright like blatantly thrown in our faces as it is here. Like there were like subtle moments of, you know, when Clarice is in the room and all the cops are there and she's like, all right, you know, thank you. Like everyone go home, and they're just sort of looking at her, and then they finally go. And I understand that like there are 10 years removed from this, like that, like there's a lot of character development has happened to this woman in 10 years. But here it's just like her thing is that just like she's become like hardened and just like, you know, kind of no nonsense about the whole thing. And I mean, obviously there's going to be some sort of growth there, but the way that the film approaches it, it's just like everything, like the characters are just like, the misogyny is just like fully turned up to the highest level possible, and she's just sort of like you said, left there to kind of just pick up the pieces and maneuver through it as best she can with the limitations. And to me, that's not as interesting as like the scope to which it was like approached in Silence of the Lambs, where it was such an introspective struggle for her, and it wasn't ever like outright spoken. Like there was no on the nose dialogue about this is what it is. And you know, like Ray Liotta's character, what's his name in this?
His name,
but just like
is
his like
Paul Krendler.
But everything. Paul Krendler, like, but everything that came out of his mouth, just like blatant misogyny in this workplace, and the higher ups just being like, you know, boys will be boys sort of thing. But you've been bad. We're gonna punish you, and we're gonna put you on this case. And like the thing is, like, very much like Hannibal in this movie, like Clarice also doesn't really have a storyline. Like neither of them really have much, like, not that they don't have like character agency, but they don't really have purpose. And it's just like, why are either of them doing what they're doing in this movie? They feel like supporting characters for the first 2/3 of it, and then like by the end they're the main characters, but there's really nothing that's been developed or understood about why they're doing what they're doing, other than like it's her job. You know, she's kind of been assigned to this case, and she spends like most of the movie in this FBI dungeon doing shit. But like with him, it makes absolutely no sense that once he's taken care of Pazzi, that he's gonna like, okay, well, you know, I've successfully evaded detection for 10 years until this guy, and now that I'm on the radar again, let's fly to Washington D.C. or Maryland or wherever the setting is, like into the belly of the beast where there are tons of FBI agents who are looking for me, and put myself in and Mason Verger, who's trying to kill me, and put myself in this vulnerable position, rather than like, okay, time to regroup, time to go further into hiding, find a new identity. And I mean, I guess it's set up in a way here, like by the end of the movie, he says to her, I don't remember the line, but it's just like, you know, if you're like something a million years, like, would you say you loved me or whatever? So I'm like, okay, so is he in love with her, and that's why he's come to find her? Because I mean, this is the thing, like Hannibal, I never got the sense of, even in the first movie, that he loved her. There might have been an attraction, but it's an obsession. And I think that they're both equally obsessed with one another, but it's just like, it's still, that obsession isn't honed in enough for me to buy that she's going to risk her career to have any involvement in this, and that he's going to risk his freedom to have any involvement in her.
Yeah, I mean, again, this was something that was handled so well. I'm sorry to keep bringing up the first movie, but that's what we do. As I remember just lovely lines like Hannibal turning to Clarice after she's visiting him for like the upteenth time, and him saying, "People will say we're in love, Clarice," you know, and which bespeaks kind of like a not consciousness, but a self-awareness about how this must look to people, that she keeps, you know, going to him, and that he keeps, you know, spending these, you know, extended sessions with her as long as he can until they have to escort her away. But they both know what's going on, and what's really going on, and what made the first movie so captivating was we're watching two people get to know each other. I think more than love or even obsession. I think the obsession certainly figures in, but I think more than anything, they're fascinated by each other. They needed each other for their own perspective objectives, and they also were learning about each other in a very real way, which I think maybe bespeaks, I can't call it friendship, but I think it resembles an intimate friendship more than it does a love relationship, where I don't think the two of them would ever get it on, is what I'm saying. And what I don't like that this movie also, I feel like, kind of misses the mark on is when there's finally no glass between the two of them, there's all of a sudden this raw sexual energy, which we covered in the first movie when we talked about Hannibal beating the that one police officer, or that guard with the baton in slow motion, with these kind of like, short but breathy thrusts of the baton, very, very phallic. And I saw a similar energy in Hannibal when he was pushing Clarice up against the refrigerator and getting her hair caught in the door and then breaking the thing off, and the way he spoke to her, that felt very, evocative of the cover of numerous, dime store romance novels and, these Harlequin romances. And I liked it when they would joke about it and even acknowledge, like, that's what's going on. But I don't like it played out before me, because I don't believe that's really what's going on. That's not what makes them interesting to me. There isn't a Beauty and the Beast component to that dynamic that I feel this film got in touch with. Like I said, they missed the mark. And also the way she feels about him, I didn't like how afraid she seemed of him. I always felt like Clarice understood the threat that Hannibal posed.
Yeah.
But there's something about her exchange with even Barney. I feel like they had Barney evoke a line that she spoke in the first movie in this movie, when he's talking to her about how free-range rude people are who Hannibal likes to feed on. Yeah. And how, he never worries about how Hannibal will come after him because, he was never rude to him. And he asks her, like, how about you? And there's a wonderful opportunity for these two characters who know this one character so well, who are talking about him like they're his exes almost, but for them to connect on, like, no, not really. I mean, but I know he's dangerous, but not to me. But she just says almost timidly, like with a kind of like a nervous laugh, do you ever think about him? She's like, only about 30 seconds of every day. And I'm like, no.
That felt like a line they probably used in the trailer or something like that. Because it's almost like the Laurie Strode, like H2O. It's just like, he has pursued her relentlessly for 20 years. That bullshit. And even in Silence, there was, I'd say that, like, the relationship between them, there was a respect that they each had. And she even said at one point in Silence to Casey Lemon's character, he won't come after me. Like, I can't explain it, but he would consider that to be rude. So this movie's already kind of contradicting what has been already established in the first movie. And
what's admirable. Yeah.
Again, it's just a matter, I don't even think, like, Thomas Harris writing the book, took these considerations into mind, because, I mean, like, this is the source material. Like, it's not like they took a wonderful book and destroyed it. Like, his book already was not great. Like, the ending of the book actually has Clarice running off with Hannibal. And it's like years later, and I forget where in the world they are, but Barney sees them. He sees Hannibal and he sees Clarice with her. To just sort of establish, yes, that's what happens. They fell in love. They ran off together. And it didn't make sense in the book. And I think that at least the studio had the wherewithal to know, like, okay, we can't have that happen in the movie. But even the way that the movie ended is just like, well, that's it. Like, he's on an airplane. And that always, like, boggled my mind. I mean, like, this is like, FBI's 10 most wanted, and he's just on an airplane. He's got a cast on because, you know, he's assumedly chopped off part of his like his wrist. His hand is gone. So they're especially going to be like, keep your eye out for, you know, a person who looks like this who's now missing a hand. Like, that's even harder to hide. But he's just flying commercial. And, you know, I would expect him to be like on a slow boat to China, like in a crate or something. Like, you know, something a little bit more clever. He's just like brazenly like, come get me, world. As he's like eating Paul Krendler's brain and feeding it to this kid.
He had the time to pack a lunch. Like, even the logistics of that, I'm like, theatrically, I guess I understand what they were going for. Like, and if you want to, you can just kind of focus on the exchange between him and the little boy and not focus on how did he get on that plane, and like, does he have ID that, like, you know, has him under another name, like he was Dr. Fell for 10 long years in Florence, Italy. And that was another thing. At a certain point, when Inspector Pazzi, anytime he'd call him Dr. Fell, it started to sound like he was calling him Dr. Phil, and I just had to chuckle to myself. That's how I know I'm not in the movie, is when I'm getting pulled out repeatedly. Yeah. And also, that was another thing that got me, was the whole Inspector Pazzi thing. We're talking about, like, characters... even on the lowest rung of the ladder in terms of like the amount of screen time they got in the first movie, I always felt like there's a life behind that person, no matter how unscrupulous that person may be, or how we only get to see maybe one side of them because they have limited screen time and we get to watch them do like a dastardly deed or something. Everybody had a life. I spend I don't know how much time of this movie's runtime with Inspector Pazzi, and I never feel like I get to learn anything about him, even chiefly what seems to be motivating him to want to go after this money, except that we see an exchange between him and his I don't know, wife, girlfriend, whatever, his woman, his lady. She wants good seats to the opera. So is that is that the whole thing? They are expensive, and I'm sure they're even more expensive in Italy because they're expensive out here in the States where I am. But so is that the whole thing? Does he feel like less of a man, and like he wants to provide the kind of life he can to keep his beautiful young wife? Like, I mean, I wish we'd gotten any more insight to that character, considering the amount of time he spends on screen. But I feel like he's more than anything, I don't know if the word is placeholder, but how about this? A pawn, just like something to propel the chess game of this movie, or maybe it's more checkers.
It's a plot device,
just to keep the thing going and to get to the sequence where he hires, you know, like that person on the street, that pickpocket, to
From what I remember in the book, it's like all the Florence stuff mostly is like very faithful to what we see here, because at a certain point the movie, like the book, just becomes all about his character, and we follow him, and it's done in a way that's just like it's this investigation, like, is this Hannibal Lecter, is this, you know, going through that, and it just, I don't even remember if it worked in the book, but it certainly doesn't really work here because there is no layers to pull back. There's no intrigue about that. It's just like, oh my God, I made this discovery, or like the audience made this discovery of it all. I think that in a movie called Hannibal, or even a book called Hannibal, that the more interesting story would have been to see Hannibal's perspective of this man coming after him and trying to turn him into these people who want to pay a lot of money to kill him. So like that would have given Hannibal a lot more agency in the plot, and just in terms of like, okay, I need to avoid getting captured. How am I going to like get one up on this guy? What am I going to do next? Like, what is the plan? Like, seeing the movie unfold through all of these like outsiders, I mean, it could have been interesting, like you said, but they don't really give him a whole lot. Like, I think even the girl with the scream 3 Gale bangs in the drugstore, whatever it is. Like she's one scene in Silence of the Lambs where she's talking about her friend who was murdered, and she's like,
she could do a one-woman show.
That big dummy, you know.
Yeah,
you know, like there's so much more like empathy in that character in 20 seconds of a scene than there was for like 45 minutes or however long it took that we were hanging out with Inspector Pazzi.
Yeah, and Pazzi. P-A-Z-Z-I. So you pronounce it however you say it.
It's like
everybody pronounces it differently.
A pizza, but just, you know, letters rearranged. Yeah.
Pazzi. But I think he also, he's obviously not like a stand-up, like excellent inspector, but he's a really bad criminal as well. Because, I mean, there never really seems to be any kind of acknowledgement of the risk he's taking with this man who, you know, is looming so large, you know, back in the States and is warranting this kind of like a reward. It's like, well, what kind of precautions are you taking to keep yourself safe and to keep, you know, your wife or girlfriend, whatever she is, safe? Like,
it's his wife. He says, I've given a lot of thought to eating your wife.
Oh, right. Okay, there you go. See, that's how memorable he is. And he goes... and
that was a Hannibal line, though.
No, but I mean, that's even how memorable, like, Hannibal's exchanges are in this. Like, I do not lean into this movie except when Mason Verger's on screen. And Mason Verger, I will say, having not read the book, but having seen multiple kind of iterations of this character, I feel like I have an opinion over, like, who this man is. And I think... there's something just in my gut, even the first time I saw this movie, I remember, that said, like, oh, whatever movie you're in, I want to see that. Like, everything about his dynamic with Cordell feels absolutely right, and I want to keep going back there. When Clarice visits him, because we got Gary Oldman playing Mason Verger, and a great actor who I saw in tons of things in the 90s. I remember, wasn't he did, I think, a really significant role on the X-Files, didn't he? Zeljo
talked about him before.
Ivanek.
Yeah.
He worked a lot. He's always good, and but there was just something also, because the thing is, they're in the same movie for sure. Yeah. There was just a little. I went back to kind of like try and catch something that Mason Verger said, and I couldn't find it, but I did get to see when Clarice is escorted into Mason Verger's bedroom by Cordell. Mm-hmm. Mason Verger asks Cordell, leave us, and everything, and Cordell's just kind of like, oh, you know, it's very, actually, you know what the level of theatricality is? Faye Dunaway in Mommy Dearest, or something like the way she gets thrown by her love interest and then goes like, I didn't mean it. You know, he's just kind of like, oh, I thought I might stick around, you know, just in case I could be useful. And just like, you'll be more useful outside. I mean, whatever the exchange is,
you'll be more useful checking on my lunch. It's just
there
like,
you go,
Marcy, don't check on my lunch.
Exactly. You know, like, can all be up to speed? Can we, girls? But, and then he looks at Clarice and goes, "Your Violet, my
I could do with a little kink."
Now suck it and see or get out. But anyway, he can say any one of those lines and it makes perfect sense. But this is the thing about the character, just within the framework of this movie. I don't even completely understand his origin story. I don't know if it was more clearly spelled out in the book and if you would remember, but he makes some comment about like boys at camp getting candy, and I was like, oh, that was the line I was actually looking for. I was like, wait, so are you, I mean, you've got a very pervy quality to you, so are you just, you know, being dirty, or are you actually like talking about experiences you had either as a child or as a camp counselor? What's going on here, Mason Verger? Who are you? You're gross, and I want to see more.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a lot of Mason Verger. The thing with the book is that he had a sister as well, Margot.
Oh, yes.
She's in the show, played by Catherine Isabel, Freddy versus Jason. Ginger Snaps,
yes.
But that character was omitted here, and that was another thing, because after reading the book and seeing the movie, I'm just like, what happened to this person? Where was that?
Yeah.
So I think Cordell kind of like stands in for all of that. Like any time like Mason needs someone like a servant or whatever, it's always Cordell going and doing the whatever his bidding is. But it's just like that movie, that environment where Gary Oldman is getting to play this character. This is someone who's having fun. This is a fun part of the movie. This is the kind of shit that I want to see them lean into, so I can just like enjoy that. And that's the full aspect of it. I will say that in terms of like the way the movie looks and sounds, when they're in Florence, like all of that is impeccable. Like it's just it's shot beautifully, probably because of the location. Because when we do kind of check back in with like Clarice in DC, it's like I said, it's very flat. It feels procedural. There's a lot of like slow motion or like. And even like rapid slow motion, like when she drops the tapes and she runs.
That's my favorite example.
Yeah.
When she, Jesus Christ, it's like, sorry, I agree with you. That I was like, what the point? What was the fucking point of that?
And this is Ridley Scott.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But Ridley Scott is one of those directors who, when I love, when he hits the mark, my God, does he ever. Particularly for me. I mean, for someone who loves, behavior-based cinema and subjectivity, I think he knows how to balance that and make it feel mainstream when he hits the mark. But when he misses so exquisitely.
Yeah.
You know what it made me think of? Because, number one, just to speak to the Italy thing, I only halfway agree with you because I did think, and I even put this in my notes, Italy has never looked uglier to me on screen. Like there's something and maybe that was a choice because I felt Ridley Scott maybe trying, or the evidence that I got on screen gave me the impression that Ridley Scott was trying to kind of like almost evoke a similar level of operatic grandeur that we had in the first movie and that we even discussed in that pod, and balance it with a kind of daily practice procedural, baseline Americanness. And in some ways, I think, because I can recognize it, I think in some ways he's succeeded. And in other ways, I think, but not like this. There was something about, there was a chill I felt kind of throughout this entire movie. And I felt a chill almost throughout the first movie, but the chills are very, very different. There's something about the grit and about the chill that evokes. It's immersive. It evokes kind of like what it must be like to be in that terrain and to be in the vicinity of those people in the first movie. In this one, the chill I get is because it's mostly a palette that consists of grays, blues, and greens. There's very few warm, almost kind of tungsten lit moments in this movie, and even when they still look chilly. When red is on screen, it veers toward burgundy or purple because even red can't be lush in this world. So there's an icy, almost and sleeker. It doesn't because there's no grit. It looks more glamorous.
I mean, it's
like there's a sheen to it.
The early 2000s, but I mean, like I don't think that it looks like spectacular. I've seen Italy photographed like so much better. It's just the fact that we're in Florence. Like this is a setting. Like I feel like when I think of Florence, I think Hannibal. That's what comes to mind mostly when I think of this movie. That's a setting that I can at least be like, that is unique to this. When they go back to the States, it's could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And no, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think one thing that came to mind when I just thought about like the production design of this movie was and this happens in multiple franchises, but I feel like you kind of like start in one. It's interestingly enough, I think about like the Alien franchise, which started with Ridley Scott, which had a grit and had an accessibility, even though it was space and it was in the future. It still looked like there was something immediate to it and something human. component to it, so everything else worked. And then as you can progress through that saga, you get, by the time you get to, I'd say, Alien Resurrection, certainly, but even elements of Alien 3. But by Alien Resurrection, it's a completely different kind of space. It looks very Sci-Fi Channel. It looks very sleek and very gray and very, what's the word I'm looking for? Sanitary. With this one, it's a similar thing where I feel like you start off in something that works and that is relatable in sometimes, almost antagonistic ways. Like you don't want to see the world that you're living in, but you can't stop watching. And it's not because they've made it more glamorous or more chic. Because that's another thing. Even when I look at Julianne Moore, and it's not her fault, but it felt like there was an effort. It's hard not to photograph Julianne Moore and make her look beautiful, but I felt like I could see the hair people sweeping her hair into a ponytail behind her, just making sure there were no stray hairs and things like that. It just looked very manicured and very, like you said, back to the procedural thing. It looked like very must-see TV, very NCIS,
And
kind of
I mean,
thing.
the thing is that like Silence of the Lambs is a very unique world.
It
And
is.
we talked about that in the podcast, where it feels like a movie that doesn't exist, or like that world doesn't exist in any other movie that has come out. And that like the difference from Silence to Hannibal is jarring. And I mean, even looking at the entire franchise, because there's 5 movies and a TV series. The Manhunter, which is the first one, like that had a very Miami Vice tone to it. That, I mean, it's still like, it has like that because that was 86. Like it still kind of has that same, film grade, because it was like 91 is when Silence came out, that there's some similarities, but just very Miami Vice compared to Silence, which I mean, Silence, there's maybe a little Twin Peaks in there, without like the supernatural, but it does feel different. This is just like, this feels very evocative of like the procedurals that were very popular at the time in the early 2000s. Red Dragon, I'd have to see it again. It's been a while, but I remember it being kind of vanilla, just in terms of the just sort of the world that was being created there. I know they did a very faithful job of adapting the book.
Yes.
I don't remember Hannibal Rising at all. I think I fell asleep through it. I think that, I mean, outside of Silence of the Lambs, like the television series, like the world that they create there almost feels like a hodgepodge of like the best aspects of all of the movies put together and made into one. So that's why like the series works so well. But like it's so different from movie to movie. It's not like, like even like with Halloween, even though John Carpenter only directed the first one, at least like, you have the same crew on the first 3 movies. Like that felt very similar. 4 and 5, well, they feel kind of similar. 5 has that like the crazy Europeanness to it, but that kind of makes me appreciate David Gordon Green with like the new trilogy. Even though I love, you raised your eyebrow there, but I have to pay credit where credit is due for something that like there is a benefit to having the same creative team coming on board for like, if it's like 3 movies in a row or more movies in a franchise, that there's a consistency. And that feels like something with Silence or like the Hannibal franchise. It's just, you could pick and choose any movie. You don't really, there's no through line in terms of like watching one and then, okay, now I'm going to watch this, because it's completely different experiences.
Yeah. Even the gore in this movie feels like it's of another universe. There was gore present in the first movie, but it's not. It never feels like a separate component from the other storytelling elements. Whereas with this one, it's kind of something that I wait for, because even though I feel like it's just as grand guignol as the first movie, I feel like it's maybe leans a little bit more on the exploitative thing. Like, I mean, I think it's a little grosser, and you know me, I like gross. That was that was part of my lure into the genre of horror when I was a boy. So like when we get moments like kind of like the intestines of Pazzi falling on the streets of Florence, is, you know, that tableau of him just like hanging there. When we get Paul having finally exposing, like, you know, after the ball cap is taken off, and we get his brain exposed, and we get to see him eat his own fried brains.
That was such a huge takeaway for a lot of people. Like, everyone talked about the brain scene.
Sure.
And I look at that movie today, and I forget about it until it happens, and it doesn't shock me. Like, I think at the time they wanted to make something that was like very sensationalized. Like, that's what a lot of the shit in this movie is. It's just all sensationalism, and it doesn't have staying power. It doesn't have rewatchability. Because here I am, every time I rewatch this movie, we get to that part, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this, where like at the time people walked away from there like, oh my god, the brain, like that was so good, and So,
I just think of Scary Movie 2 making fun of it when I forget, was it Shorty, where I think Chris Elliott's butler character has cut Shorty's head open, and then you see Beetlejuice in there just laughing, and it's really so weird. But I mean that moment has surpassed you know, this Hannibal moment, and I don't, again, like, it's. I say it's effective, but not with an exclamation mark, with a period. You know, like, yeah, it was effective. I'll shrug and go, I'll give you, it's somewhat memorable, and it's somewhat, you know, it made me retch. I'm not to the point where Clarice is. That's another thing, where you have like a character who's responding in a way, but like she she is so over the top, like, you know, like about to hurl over the table.
In this whole sequence, like, it just. She's called, like, I guess she's alerted the FBI. They're on their way.
Yeah.
And then she proceeds to go downstairs, and she's like grabbing like a table knife. She's clearly been drugged, and she's like, I'm gonna grab this table knife. She's completely ineffective at every turn. He just like you know, grabs the knife. You know, she's like a child, and he's just like, I'm gonna take that away from you. And then she has the candlestick. Yeah, I'm gonna grab that from you. Like, why are you even bothering at this point? Like Jodie Foster's take on the character would be so much smarter. And that's the thing. It's just like, you know, comparing the climax of this movie to the climax of Silence of the Lambs. And I apologize if it just feels like we're comparing the movies, and that's the only reason that because I'm criticizing this movie of its own merits. Like I said, like, you watch this movie, it's completely removed. But I'm looking at it like a movie like Silence, where there's so much tension in that when she's going through the house. Like, that is scary. That is a horror movie. This is not a horror movie to me. This is just high drama, and like procedural shit. Because like I'm not afraid for her life. I'm not afraid for Hannibal. I don't care about Paul Krendler. She's clearly like really broken up. Like, she's tearing up because he's doing, like, why do you even care about this man? Like, he despises you. The feeling is mutual. I guess like they're trying to establish that she has some sort of like level of morals, that like, you know, she wouldn't want to see this man, even though he's not innocent, he's like obviously corrupt, that she doesn't want to see any like harm come to people. But it's just so that's how you're going to display it, because she's just like, no, I really want some wine, or whatever she's going on about. The one moment that I do love is when he throws the dish towel over Paul Krendler's head. That's it doesn't make it all worth it, but I thought it was a nice touch.
Yeah, there's a pocket full of things that I can appreciate. There was I mean, there again, something that like worked for me. It's a small detail, but I did find myself going, because I had forgotten that it happened. Which is when Hannibal is working on Paul's brain, and he literally peels a film back that is covering the brain, which I don't know if it's a legitimate, you know, anatomically correct, you know, feature of like the way our bits and pieces are packaged, but I don't know. I had forgotten it happened, and I had a reaction to it. But again, like, I mean, we're talking about like totally isolated details, and not like the big picture things, which are really where this movie, I feel like, missed the mark. And go ahead.
Like Hannibal getting kidnapped in the first place, like just wandering into whatever that shopping center is. He knows that there's people following her. He even comments on them. That just like he's just gonna walk outside, get tased, and kidnapped, and all like just both him and Clarice just being the stupidest versions of themselves from what we know their potential is. That it's just like it's really hard to get behind anything in this movie. You're just sort of get to a point and you're just watching it all play out. You're waiting for Mason Verger to come on screen.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if Brian Fuller saw this movie and thought, I can do all of this so much better. I can do that so much better. But
I would love to hear what Brian Fuller has to say about this movie.
This particular,
if he hasn't already said,
I'll look, but it definitely will. But I also, because this is the thing. And I won't delve into it too much, but I just want to say, like, the Hannibal that was created by Mads Mikkelsen and by Brian Fuller and by all of their writers and everybody who worked on that series, that Hannibal Lecter would make me believe. You could tell me he's making people act irrationally, go places on their own, being kind of taking a chance on being isolated with him. In spite of like every red flag in the world, and I would believe you because that's the character that they've set up. They did none of that preliminary work with this Hannibal Lecter because we'd never actually watched him completely manipulate and brainwash someone before. So when you see a character like Pazzi or like Clarice, be stupid enough to be left alone with this man, it just looks like a horrible error in their judgment, and it makes them less interesting and less smart, and it makes everything that follows, all of the action, less infused with anything that's compelling or that feels like this is inevitable. That's what would have been nice if this movie could have felt inevitable. Instead, it just kind of feels like, oh, this is what happened after. It's not as interesting, but like that's what the movie's doing.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people want to see, though, like in like audiences where they'll have a question, be like, well, what happens next? Because like that's the mark of like a really successful movie where you present a story from start to finish that's so good that people are like, well, then what happened? And it's just like nothing. We don't have to see that. This is the story that we're telling. This is a complete story. But it's just like that is what producers and studios hear, and they're like dollar signs. What happens next? Well, nothing really that interesting, but we'll show it to you anyway. And just bringing up Mads Mikkelsen is that he's terrifying. He's like as Hannibal. Like this is a scary dude. Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs is scary. The way that they've portrayed him here is like he's very disarming, and I know that's a quality to Hannibal, but it's just like that's the only one that they've really tapped into. Like it's just like he's so charming. He's like everyone's grandpa. You just kind of want to like sit on his lap and have him tell you stories or of days gone by, or like play piano for you or whatever. It's just like, oh wow, like there's just a quality to him that you don't even feel threatened by him. It's just like, oh, I want to hang out. I want him to make me dinner. He's like going to like, I don't even know why they showed this in the movie where he goes to the store. He's like shopping and buying all the stuff. And it's like he's already pre-planned this, and it doesn't even make any sense because like so much happens in the interim. Like he's kidnapped. And But it's like they've completely neutered him to the point where it's just like he has no bite.
I agree. That's
the problem here.
In terms of his skill of anticipation, I just wrote, are we to suspect that Hannibal anticipated that Pazzi would be on his trail, so he structured a lecture on how he would dispose of him? Or is it mere coincidence and kind of like unparalleled improvisational skills that gave him the upper hand and the idea right then and there? Like I thought, and I agree with you in terms of like the threat that he poses in this movie. Another crucial thing that I feel like this movie missed the mark on, it was the groundwork was laid for you in the first movie when they told you about like the attack on a nurse without his his blood pressure ever rising above a particular level, which told you that he was completely calm and completely lucid as he was doing everything he was doing. Cut to Clarice watching footage of the attack on this nurse. I assume it's the same attack. And because it's before they have him, masked and before they have him properly incapacitated. Yes. And he looks like a rabid dog mauling her. And I'm like, okay, you're telling me he did that and his blood pressure never rose above a particular, when I think of violent, it's not like Hannibal Lecter can't be violent. He can, but he has to be violent like a surgeon. His cuts have to be quick and intentional and lethal. And that was not what they depicted in that surveillance photo of him attacking that nurse. And that's also not what they depicted when he slammed Clarice's hair into that refrigerator. I'm sorry. It was so stupid.
What do you make of him chopping off his hand instead of hers?
I mean, it's not really something I think about when I think about this movie, so it's not like I watch it knowing that it was coming. I think I had actually forgotten about it, but when it came to the moment, I was like, well, of course. He's not going to cut off your hand. He's going to cut off his own. Watch him cut off his own. It's going to be a big surprise, and then we're going to see her with two hands. We're going to ooh, look at me. And I was right. What about you?
No, I mean, because that's where the story diverged from the books and the movie. So I, at the time, I just sort of, I do like the little the push-in on it because he raises the cleaver and it's just like that push-in on his face. there's a little bit of camp to that I like, but then it cuts to her and it's like slow motion, so much fucking slow motion in this, and the screaming and the whatever. So no, it's just a thing. It was just another flourish that they put in there to sensationalize everything. But I mean, I gave this 2.5. What did you give it?
I haven't yet, but I would probably 1.5 seems low. I'd probably do 2, maybe. I have to look at what else I've given 2 and go that feels right. But I'd say around 2 stars out of 5.
And you said 5 for the side.
Oh yes, 5 out of 5, no question for the first movie. I have whatever qualms other people have. I feel like I have points of argument for them, which we addressed, and then for me, I sail through. There's only one kind of exploitative moment for me, but even that, it doesn't spoil the broth. It's just kind of like eating a delicious dish and you're wondering, do I have a hair in my mouth? Oh no, I don't. That's just.
Well, my method, when I kind of I'll get halfway through a movie, or at any point, and I'll just be like, oh, this is a 4-star movie, or this is just how I compute that in my head. And there was a point for a while I was just 3 stars, and then when it got to the end, it was just keep going down, 2.5.
Oh, see, by the time we got to Clarice and her bust getting busted, basically, I was already this is why I don't like this movie. I just had a sour face, and I just waited for Mason Verger to come on. And that's another thing. We're talking about a completely, seemingly irredeemable character. When the people you work for you hate you so much that they're going to push you into the pit with boars who are, conditioned, who you've hired, you've been had trained to to chase the screams and the loud noises and everything like that. You're a bad person, and yet there's something about watching him. Maybe it's because of the trauma that Mason Verger has suffered, and the fact that he still can have a sense of humor, albeit a dark and morbid and disgusting sense of humor, but he still likes to play, he still finds the joy in his life on the daily, I mean, it's at the expense of many other people, and who knows how many people are suffering so he can live like that in those, that huge train station of a home.
Trauma on other people as well.
But it makes it entertaining. He's an interesting bird to follow.
It does, for sure. Anyway, with that said, I think that it's time to head over to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people on purpose.
All right, cherry on top. I feel like everything that we've been talking about and just talked about is kind of leading up to that, because that's my pick would be Mason Verger. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, shout out to, what was that? There was one, I mean, he doesn't deserve to be the cherry on top. But I just want to give a shout out to Franco Benite, the the Italian officer that Clarice was talking on the phone with. He was hot. That's all.
Oh, the one that was like drawing the tits when he's like,
yeah. Yeah, everybody's got it for Clarice, even if they have no
even
idea
if they
what
only
she
hear
looks
her
like.
voice. Yeah,
They're fantasizing about what must her body look like. God, people.
Yeah.
This movie anyway.
But that's what I'm talking about. This movie, it's just like everything is so blatant and on the nose. Whereas like in Silence, it was very nuanced. It was very subtle. Very methodical. But yeah, Mason Verger, cherry on top. Last week, we asked you who deserves to die the most in The Strangers Chapter 1. I nominated Joe, the Airbnb owner. You nominated Ryan. Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote was 118 for Joe versus 248 for Ryan.
Hey.
Yeah. It didn't help that I, didn't even have a picture because I don't think we saw the guy's face.
You just see a corpse on the ground.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's other than the Strangers, who is it going to be against yours? So, Thomas Baker says, I'm going with Ryan on this one. He literally had a chance to kill one of the strangers. Also, dude, she already knows you killed someone. She was there. Fred Hodder. Ryan, when you have the chance to shoot. Don't talk. Yeah. Zack, you make a good argument for the landlord, and if it had been against literally anyone else in this movie, you would have won.
Nice.
Amethyst Frost. If there's a recent horror movie couple that deserves going against each other in the cherry picker, it's Maya and Ryan. Both are total idiots, and it's been a while since I was as frustrated with stupid main characters in a horror movie as these two. So I get Zack's reasoning for nominating the landlord, but Ryan's got to go. P.S. I'm glad the cherry picker is doing Hannibal next, because Eddie's Mason Verger impression was one of the best running gags of the old Patreon pod. Finally, it will cross over to the main CP. So nice. Some people have been on board with
yeah.
What about my Mason Verger?
You do a great Mason Verger. You just need to do it more often.
Okay, fair enough. I'll just stick to Chucky.
Okay. That's your ace in the hole, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all I've got. It's really all I've got going for me.
And I can't do it for shit, so take it and run with it.
Thank you. Yeah. The Real Tribal Chief. As someone who actually enjoyed this movie, I could not stand Ryan. No boy. Firstly, this movie was a major letdown for me. Secondly, I usually side with Eduardo of Edward is Truth, but this time I'm going to go with Zack. Z-A-C-K. Although Joe is barely in the movie and doesn't have a photo to identify him. Since the movie was basically following the same beats as the first movie, I knew what was going to happen to him. I kind of wish one of you had nominated one of the strangers, Pinup Girl, perhaps. I don't know why the fact they were wearing beanies covering their hair made me upset, LOL, especially for Dollface, but I would have preferred Pinup Girl get the D. And then in parentheses, death.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because there was that moment, I don't even think we addressed it, where Pinup and Scarecrow are doing that March of the Penguins head kind of like, kiss, like where they're both kind of like brushing their heads against each other.
Because they're the mom and dad, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, but I mean, so I would understand if it were that D. Anyway, just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I don't know, like, who of, like, the strangers, Dollface, like, really aggravated me in the first two. She was my nomination. But here I was just like, whatever. It just felt, like, very repetitive to nominate her again. And she honestly wasn't even that much of a presence that
She didn't make that much of an impression. I think she was the one who was looking down into the ditch, though, right? Did we determine that? She was the one who was looking down at Maya in the ditch, I think.
Yeah.
So that was one.
And I don't know that I would vote. I mean, like, yeah, they were a stupid final couple, but we've covered some final couples who have been way worse. I mean, like, we haven't gotten to Friday Part 8 yet, but I mean, those two might be my least favorite of all time.
Rennie and whatever his name is.
Rennie and fuck. Yeah, I don't.
Not memorable enough to have a name.
It'll come back to me after we
when we do
recording.
that pod. Yeah.
My chunky Geordie. I haven't seen this, but I vote Ryan. I've seen people's reviews, and he not only doesn't shoot, but he leaves a working vehicle. How stupid is that? Silent Saturn. Oh, this is like the opposite of the previous comment. I don't normally agree with Eddie's shoot, kill mentality, but in this case, I'd have to agree. Also, What did Joe do? He literally came out in the middle of the night to fix a fridge for a couple that would be gone in the morning. What were they even planning to put in the fridge anyway at this point? Joe clearly really needed that 5-star Yelp review. Probably lives off a tiny pension with all of his savings spent on his wife's medical bills, who died anyway, and no support from his children, who only call once a year, living it up in Florida. Still, he remained cheery and helpful. He wasn't even thoughtful enough to leave a weapon behind for his tenants to protect themselves with. Yeah, he did. When he heard people in the area went missing, and all he got in return was getting his face blown off and Zack spitting on his grave. Actually, I vote for Ryan, specifically because he killed good old caring Joe. R.I.P. That the world did not deserve you.
That's hilarious.
Well, I guess Joe... None of that matters for him anymore. Say that.
Right? I didn't know we were going to get a eulogy for Joe in the comments section.
A eulogy for Joe. That was like his Airbnb review there.
Yeah, his final review.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that it?
No, there's more. Could you imagine, like, that's like the Maya at the end of Strangers Chapter 1? Beautiful house, great working piano, but people tried to kill us. 1 star.
That better be how they open Chapter 2, that Maya's writing her Airbnb review. Oh, I'm sweating. Okay, go on.
But the fridge didn't work. 1 star.
Yeah, right.
Denise.
Still, 5 stars.
Denise. No doubt Ryan, because he had a actual chance of killing Pinup. And also because he annoyed me.
Okay.
Mendehito. I'm so glad my ticket was discounted at $5, so only my time was wasted after watching this movie. Double win for Ryan and Maya. And then Craig says, or thanks, I've not seen it yet. I'll not bother now. To which Silent Saturn responded, there's no spoilers here, so... That's why it's who deserves to die. You know, it's not past time. Who deserves to die the most?
Not who deserved. Yeah.
There's been lots of winners who have survived.
Absolutely.
The movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're up. You've got this.
So this
one.
is kind of tough because I can't tell whether it's the eternal question. What's a more hideous offense, being boring or being loathsome? I think I'm going to have to go with Paul Krendler, because though he's memorable, he is loathsome. And also, I mean, it's not hard to write a misogynist. And I feel that the screenwriting doesn't really do even that any kind of service. Like there's you took a character who could potentially, I mean, I don't know what he's like in the book, but who could potentially already be one-dimensional, and you cut that dimension in half. Like, you made him so despicable that he has no problem just kind of like insulting Clarice to her face while his brains are being eaten. One could argue he's still making the comments because his brains are being eaten, but I don't find him interesting. And poor Ray Liotta couldn't do anything to save that role, and it makes the sexism that Clarice has to endure so much less bearable. I could easily see if a woman told me that she watched Silence of the Lambs as a girl and that motivated her to join the FBI, I would believe her. If she told me she watched Hannibal and that motivated her to join the FBI, I'd say, what is wrong with you? So, and I feel like Paul Krendler is kind of like the epitomal FBI problem. Yeah. And also, like I usually say, he's everything that's wrong with the world. So the fact that he died is great, but I think he should have died harder. And
we didn't even see it.
No, and I would have liked to see him like feel some measure, because at least this, I'll say what you will about like Mason Verger, he experienced fear, and experienced some level of maybe regret, like as the Boers were tearing him apart. Paul Crandall didn't experience any kind of like epiphany or any kind of like come to Jesus moment. I think he just went to his death just falling asleep thinking, I'm great, so fuck him, kill him again.
With a
That's
dish
how I
towel
say it.
over
What about
his
you?
head.
Yeah.
Well, who is the boring option?
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Inspector Pazzi. I think he
Okay.
deserves to die too.
I figured.
He's unscrupulous, but he's not. I it's easier to watch him be boring than it is to watch Paul be offensive. You know what I mean?
Sure. I just had a thought and it escaped me. Oh yeah. It's also so jarring the fact, okay, so like Clarice's whole thing is like the FBI is her life, and Hannibal even says it, just like this, they clearly don't want you, like, this is just a kind of a bullshit job for you at this point, where you're just disrespected on a daily. So it just brings up another question, like, why is this so important to Clarice? Why is she clinging on to this in a way? Like, there's nothing in this movie for her.
No, they missed a golden opportunity too, because she was being mentored by arguably Hannibal and Jack Crawford in the first movie. I was wondering at the end of this one. Who was she mentoring?
In the book,
who was
Jack,
she mentoring? Though?
Yeah, in the book, Jack Crawford was dead at this point.
Yes,
but it's not even mentioned here. But yeah, like his presence was missed.
Or she could even be, she's in a position of power now, she could be mentoring someone, she could be, like, who is she inspiring, whose legacy is she helping, or even like building her own, like, I mean, there was none of that, and that's a really easy way to go when you have like a character who is a student. When we meet them, make them a teacher. That's so easy, and they didn't even Thomas Harris didn't even do that, so what are you gonna do? Well,
there was a character who was underneath her, we'll say, just in terms of hierarchy, who is actually going to be my pick for the cherry picker, and that is Officer Bolton. Who is just in the one scene at the beginning, but he is essentially the guy he's a police officer who kind of comes in there and just like slaps his dick out and is just like, I'm the man here. I'm the cop. You're going to listen to what... And it's just speaking to... not just Clarice, but all of the FBI. And she's kind of like, well, actually, like, we're FBI, so back the fuck off. And this is our... I don't care if you've been, like, following this. Like, we have jurisdiction here. Mm-hmm. And what does he do? He lets his ego get in the way of things. Like, here's Clarice and her FBI partner or whatever. They're like, well, no, we got to back down. There's a baby. There's too many people here. So they're calling it off. And this guy is just like, no, everyone move ahead. And who do they listen to? This asshole. And I don't even remember if he died. Probably not.
I don't either.
He just kind of disappeared. So that's another thing. Like, there's just little one-off characters that come in to fuck shit up. And she was penalized for it. It all came down to her, even though she did everything by the book. She used her discretion. Mm-hmm. She made a clear call, and then she was put in a position where now I have to shoot a mother holding a baby. That none of that would have happened if this asshole just tucked his dick back in. He could have taken a cue out of Silence of the Lambs and tucked it between his legs. And just been like, okay, I'm gonna listen to you, and all these people wouldn't be dead. I don't even know if like bystanders were like that. They're terrible editing in that scene, by the way. Because I couldn't even tell what was going on. But like, who knows? Like bystanders might have been killed. At this fish market or whatever. That baby might have contracted HIV. Like there's like all this shit, and that is all on that guy. And then Clarice got blamed for it. So he's actually the one who I think is the worst.
He's the whole reason that the first domino goes and this movie like kind of starts sucking for me, actually, because I can't take Clarice like fishing that baby away from the mother after she shot her. The mother's name was Evelda.
Evelda.
They talk like Yeah, they talk like they were long-standing,
How you
like
been?
nemesis or something. Yeah. Clarice Starling, something like that. But then she shoots her and she takes the baby and goes and puts the baby on like a little cart and just uses a hose.
Oh, the pressure of the hose. Just
oh my God, I was just kind of like, you are not doing this to my Clarice. I mean, it's not my Clarice, it's Julianne Moore, but
I mean,
still,
fortunately,
you are not.
Yeah, fortunately, it wasn't a real baby.
Unfortunate.
Evelda
And
Drumgo.
all because of some dickhead's insubordination. Maybe he did die, because if he'd been alive, maybe he could have paid a price. But he deserves to die, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Not in a way that makes Clarice suffer. Yeah. Okay,
He was just like a mini boss battle that that they had to face early on.
Terribly corrupt men.
Yeah.
We hate them.
Anyway, so you got Paul Kremler and you got Officer Bolton. So vote your heart, vote your conscience. The poll will be open on Patreon. So you can head over there even if you're not subscribed. But, if you like to, please, again, subscribe. And we appreciate any contribution you can offer. You can vote on Instagram. The handle is @thecherrypickerpod. And you can also vote here on YouTube if you are watching in the community section. If you're new to the Cherry Picker and you're listening to us, head over to YouTube and give us a subscribe. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us on all major streaming platforms. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Eduardo of Edward is Truth. Where can they find you?
Also, just wanted to mention, if you want to see Hannibal, you can stream it off MGM Plus, Pluto TV with ads, Roku channel, or you could also buy, they just released in 2019 a 4K or a Blu-ray that got a 4-star out of 5-star rating overall from Blu-ray.com. We forgot to cover that, so I just want to put that in there.
Nobody wants to see this movie.
Well, just in case.
No, they do. I would hope that they would watch it before they listen to this, though.
Right. And the 4K and the Blu-ray both come with chock full of like special features and stuff like that. So if you want an apology, maybe it's buried in there somewhere. Maybe. But Joel Schumacher style, like he did for Batman and Robin. But anyway, you can find me at Edward is Truth, one word, no spaces, traditional spelling at where am I? Instagram, Letterboxd, YouTube. TikTok still, and there's something that I posted there like a few weeks ago. I don't remember what it was. Look it up. And how about you, Zack Cherry?
Look it up. I am on my main YouTube channel, Zack Cherry, Zack, because I'm Canadian, CHERRY. I am on Instagram at RetroBitchface, all one word. Twitter, ZackCherry8, Letterboxd, where you can see all my scores for all these Cherry Picker episodes. That is Zack Cherry as well. I don't think that there's any other social media that I can think of. So what's going on next week?
Well, we're not watching Lowering Abel.
Okay.
We're watching...
You're so weird.
Raising Cain.
Raising Cain. Brian De Palma.
Which I've never seen before. Yeah,
you've never seen it? Okay. I have not seen it. I have not seen it in a very long time, but I ordered the Scream Factory Blu-ray with the slip.
Girl.
With the slip. So I'm excited. I'm going to revisit that. That's what we're going to bring you next week. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be right back.